You know that feeling, right? You're staring at a huge, important deadline that's breathing down your neck, but for some reason, reorganizing your spice rack suddenly feels like the most urgent task in the world. Well, you are definitely not alone. Procrastination is one of the most frustratingly universal parts of being human. But what's really going on here? Why do we do it?
Oh yeah, it's that classic moment, isn't it? The biggest project of the quarter is due, and all of a sudden, tidying your sock drawer isn't just a chore, it's an act of creative genius. This isn't just you, this is procrastination in its purest form, and the reasons for it are all part of a battle happening deep inside your brain.
Okay, first things first, we've got to clear up a huge misconception. Procrastination is not laziness, not even close. Laziness is about apathy, just an unwillingness to do anything. But procrastination, that's an active process. You choose to do something else even when you know you shouldn't. You absolutely plan to get that big task done, eventually. Just not right now.
And you know what? This internal tug-of-war isn't some modern problem. Humanity has been wrestling with this exact same feeling for literally thousands of years, way before smartphones and social media ever existed to distract us.
Get this, the ancient Greeks actually had a specific word for it, Akrasia. It perfectly captures that feeling of knowing what the right thing to do is, but then doing something else anyway. It's the original name for that battle between our best intentions and our immediate impulses.
The great philosopher Socrates had a really interesting take. He basically believed true Akrasia was impossible. He argued that when we pick the worse option, watching one more video instead of working, it isn't a failure of our willpower. It's a failure of knowledge. In that moment, we're just kind of ignorant of what's truly best for us in the long run.
But then his student, Aristotle, came along and said, hold on a second. His idea probably feels a lot more familiar to us. He saw it as a genuine internal fight between two parts of us, our rational brain, which knows what's good for us, and our immediate desires, our appetite, which just wants to feel good right now.
And the wild part is, what Aristotle figured out just by thinking about it all those years ago is almost a perfect match for what modern neuroscience shows is actually happening inside our heads. So think of it like there are two fighters in the ring. In one corner, you've got the limbic system. This is your ancient, emotional toddler brain. It's all about immediate pleasure and avoiding discomfort. It's the part that's screaming, let's watch one more video. And in the other corner, you have the prefrontal cortex. This is your mature, CEO brain. It handles long-term planning and says, hey, we really need to finish this report.
So when you procrastinate, what's happening is a literal neurological tug-of-war. For a brief moment, that impulsive, emotional limbic system gets the upper hand and yanks the rope, overpowering the logical long-term plans of your prefrontal cortex. For a moment, emotion beats logic.
So, the big question is, why does the emotional brain win so often? What gives it the edge in this fight? Well, it turns out there are some pretty powerful biological and psychological reasons.
And believe it or not, there's physical evidence. Brain scan studies have found that people who are chronic procrastinators often have a larger amygdala. That's your brain's little threat detector, its fear and emotion hub. A bigger, more sensitive alarm system means you're more likely to see a challenging task not just as unpleasant, but as a genuine threat.
And this reframes the whole issue. See, procrastination isn't really a time management problem, it's an emotion regulation problem. When a task makes you feel anxious or bored or full of self-doubt, your brain's alarm goes off. Putting off the task is a simple way to turn that alarm off and get a quick hit of relief from that bad feeling.
Another huge factor here is something called decision fatigue. I want you to think of your willpower like your phone's battery. Every single decision you make all day, from what to wear to how to reply to an email, drains that battery a little bit. By the time evening rolls around, your battery's in the red, and it's just so much easier to give in and put off the hard stuff.
In fact, scientists have actually managed to boil this all down into an elegant formula, known as the procrastination equation. Basically, your motivation is a function of how much you expect to succeed and how valuable the reward is. But it gets divided by your impulsiveness and, this is the kicker, the delay until you get that reward. The bigger that delay, the more your motivation just plummets. And this chart shows that principle in action perfectly. When a deadline is a month away, that delay factor is huge and your motivation is tiny. But as that deadline gets closer and closer, the delay shrinks towards zero and your motivation just skyrockets. This explains that frantic, almost superhuman burst of productivity we all get the night before something is due.
Okay, so now that we get the why, let's talk about the how. How can we actually fight back against our own brain chemistry and get things done? Well, the good news is science has given us some very practical tools.
First up is the 2-minute rule, and this one is a game changer. The logic is simple. Starting is always the hardest part. So you trick your brain by making the first step ridiculously easy. Just commit to doing the task for 2 minutes. That's it. It's so small, your brain's threat detection system doesn't even have time to fire up. And what you'll find is, once you've started, it's so much easier to just keep going.
Another really powerful one is the Pomodoro technique. You work in a super focused burst for 25 minutes, and then you get a 5-minute break. This is genius because it makes the task feel way less daunting, and it gives your emotional brain the regular, immediate rewards it craves, those little breaks. It's basically a way to hack your own reward system.
Or you could try this really clever strategy called temptation bundling. This is where you link something you want to do with something you should do. You're essentially bribing your own brain into doing the hard work.
For example, you make a rule. I only get to listen to my favorite podcast while I'm cleaning the house. Or I'm only allowed to watch my favorite show while I'm on the treadmill. You're pairing the unpleasant task with an immediate dopamine hit, which makes the whole thing feel way more appealing. Now, these tools are fantastic for getting started, but if you want to make a real long-term change, you've got to go a bit deeper. It's about shifting your mindset and actually rewiring how you think about your work and, more importantly, yourself.
And here are the essentials. First, you have to stop beating yourself up. Being self-critical just increases all those negative feelings you're trying to avoid in the first place, which makes you procrastinate more. It's a vicious cycle. Instead, try a little self-compassion. Aim for progress, not perfection. And this is so important. Celebrate the small wins. Every time you complete a small step, acknowledge it. That's how you build a positive feedback loop.
So look, if you take just one thing away from this, let it be this. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It is not a character flaw. You're not lazy and you are not broken. It is a deeply human coping mechanism for dealing with challenging emotions. Understanding that is the first step to stop blaming yourself and start working with your brain instead of against it.
So with all that in mind, let's end with a simple challenge. Take a look at your to-do list. What is one small thing, one tiny task that you can start on for just 2 minutes right now? Because the journey to overcoming procrastination doesn't start tomorrow with some big, grand plan. It starts with a single, tiny step today.